Without further ado, I'd just like to thank speakers for the great talk so far, and I'd like to invite all of you guys back in. So Tjasse, Aadesh, Eddy, and Michiel, if you could join me here. Let's just make sure this works and you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Seems to. Okay. Now, funnily enough, right, we titled this panel discussion Buzzwords versus Possibility. But I think that we sort of answered that question with your talks already. And luckily enough, we've had a lot of questions from the audience. I already have some questions myself, so we'll try to play along with and cover as many of those as possible. But if you guys take it into a specific direction, I won't stop you. And we've already answered some of these. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask is what is the driver for implementing analytics in audit? And that actually comes from, I think it popped up for me, is why now? So why is it this such a big movement now? And is the motivation coming from the top or is it intrinsic? And some of you answer that how your organizations are pushing this, but let's start up with that in alphabetic order and then feel free to take over from one another, okay?
Yeah. So, for us, the push for the data analytics, it's nothing new, right? I mean, we always had the data analytics as our cornerstone when it comes to audit. And when it comes to data analytics, it doesn't mean the usage of NIME means the data analytics, right? You can do data analytics in basic Excel as well. But the push really comes from the push towards the end-to-end testing and the full population testing, as I mentioned before. This is becoming more of a regulatory expectation. More you talk to them, more they review your work papers. This is what they look for as well. And in order to achieve that increased use of data analytics and full population testing, what was more important for us was to enable our business auditors with zero coding background to be able to do that. And NIME as the codeless platform certainly helps with that.
Michiel, you seem to be nodding heavily there.
Yeah, I definitely recognize what Aadesh is talking about, and it makes me think about what I said before, NIME unless, right? So we want to scale analytics to a large number of people that are not necessarily all technology by background, driven by background. And then NIME just helps because you can be up to speed quite easily, but you can also do quite some advanced stuff in NIME as well. So also for the people that want to do more advanced analytics, also that is possible. But I have had some and still have a number of discussions with people. Why don't we focus on doing R and Python and make people make that possible for people that people just use that. But there was one case that I recall. I think it was a little bit over a year ago, and there was an analyst within the organization that actually wrote some Python script to do some data extraction. So not even analytics, but just data extraction transformation. And then that was fantastic. It worked and it was delivered quite fast. But after a couple of months, he left the department. And then the knowledge was gone, right? And then it took quite some time for the people locally over there to get up to speed again and be able to pick up where he left off. So it's, I would say it's not scalable to a large group of people, and that makes it a little bit expensive in terms of making sure that everybody is prepared to work with those tools. So I think that's key. But there's always this modeling versus scripting discussion always going on.
Yeah, I think I recognize that, and of course we have endless discussion as Michiel has in his world. I think if you talk about the end, at the end of the day, the tool is just a tool, and I think that is also something we have to keep in mind in our case, the most important thing is that we start apply analytics. And even that is not the end goal, because even applying analytics is not a goal in itself. It's really about, for us, making ING better. And if you then take into account, let's say, the current environment in banking, with a lot of data is available. Now, as I mentioned, it's even a clear ambition within ING to become more data driven. Then I think applying analytics is, it is something you need to, you cannot avoid as internal audit, just to remain relevant in there. So analytics as itself is I think really, if you want to apply it or not, it's just a no-brainer. It's really something you have to do. And then the next step is, as soon as you have convinced people to do this kind of things, then it comes to the next level and say, okay, what kind of tooling? And then I think that already mentioned by Michiel and by Aadesh, it's really about reusability, easy to use. It's really about, let's say, a change of behavior, and that is what is driving our whole choice for if it's NIME or in this case. So that is in our case most important. Yeah.
Because I fully recognize, and we've talked a lot on that, but it also makes me wonder, especially related to the buzzwords that Metzi mentioned before. I remember a conversation that I had with the management team about I think 2.5-3 years ago, and actually the statement was, as audit we are never going to do advanced analytics. And actually, what I saw, and that's surprising indeed. But what we saw in the end was that we had some first advanced analytics quite soon, and that was quite well, profitable is maybe not the right word, but impactful. But I also saw that we can already have impact with, let's say, the basic analytics quite fast. So it's not a goal in itself. So if you take a look at the buzzwords, do we always need to do machine learning and AI and stuff like that? No, probably not. To make impact, you can also be clever with basic analytics. But it should be part of your toolkit to be able to do so, because probably you will need at least nowadays 10% advanced analytics to also make a difference in more complex situations. And if you take a look at going towards the future, then also the business is developing, and that means that probably advanced analytics is required to make impact at the later stage. But it's never a goal in itself. I don't know if you recognize that as well.
Yeah, I think that Eddy, maybe you first.
I just wanted to quickly ask, because Eddy's coming from a slightly different industry, right? With maybe different regulations and different auditing requirements, and I'm just curious, how is this for you?
I agree with the other speakers, but our own organization, we are really data driven. Everybody within management is really aware, motivated to do more with our data. That's why we train so many people in the advanced analytics. The reason that why we do it is that if you do a regular audit with a sample test of 20 items and you find 2 or 3 deviations, it's very difficult to explain how important these deviations are for the total mass of tens of thousands of transactions. When you do then a test on the whole population, it's much easier to say, okay, this is real serious, or this is real opportunity to improve. And it's also something that management and staff is really expecting from us to do, and also to give them support in it. And if you have to use NIME, no, of course not. You can also use Excel or Power Query or Power BI or Power Automate or RPA or process mining. But at least we have to do more with the data which is available, and it's easy to access nowadays. And quite often business people come to me when they want to have data, and or they have an issue with their own data. So you have to be more in a discussion with each other and have a good conversation on it.
Yeah, and we're talking about, we primarily are talking about, let's say, providing the answers, right? And using analytics for it. But what I find increasingly interesting is that actually the biggest challenge is not providing the answer. It's coming up with the right question and the good question. And therefore you need the auditors to really combine what is technologically possible with what is actually business-wise relevant. Yeah, so
Yeah. So one additional point on my side, one of the additional reasons why we're also pushing for this tool is there is that increasing expectation that IT audit needs to be part of all missions, all audits that we do, right? And I don't know the structure at your organizations, but we don't have 1:1, right? We don't have one IT auditor to one business auditors. Typically, we would have one IT auditor to, let's say, 4 to 5 business auditors, which means that it's not practical to have IT auditor on every audit mission that we do. So the way we still achieve this coverage of the IT audit is to also train our business auditors to perform some of the IT general control testing. And this is also a push that's happening in parallel with Medzi. To your early question, why now? This is something that we are trying to purposely do over the last couple of years, and the NIME in terms of the whole ecosystem just landed at the right place at the right time.
For us, I guess. One question, since you guys have talked, it was really interesting to listen everybody talk about adoption, and there's two things that I found very interesting. One is all of you have, as far as I know, have done most of the NIME propagation and advocacy internally on your own, with very little help from us, which I find really amazing how much you've put into that. But adoption leads to resistance, right? And Michiel, you briefly touched on that, but what is, for the others, what was the biggest, or maybe the biggest hurdle for adoption? And I'm not talking necessarily about NIME. This isn't really about just a tool, but the whole analytics mindset and maybe tooling around it. Maybe Tjasse?
Yeah, I think what the most I think what is important to understand is that applying analytics is about change, and then it comes, let's say, all kind of resistance, which is all related to, let's say, change, not only just on the analytics or on anything else. I think what you see, what is I think the biggest thing at our side is really to make also time available to make the change, because and that is a little bit, I'm always hesitating a little bit to link, let's say, analytics and efficiency to each other, because at the end of the day, I think that start using analytics for the first time is not giving you any efficiency gain. It really costs you double as much time as what you thought it would have. In all the kind of aspects like getting the data, start using your tool for the first time. And I think you need to be aware, if you want people to start using this kind of thing, one is to make it as easy as possible, and the second is give them sufficient time. And what you now see a lot in I think we're not unique in that, is that you put a lot of requirements already on the internal auditor. Yeah, then basically the most easy thing to do, the quickest way to fix that is to do what you already did yesterday, because that's you're used to. So I think the biggest thing on our side is really put focus, really put time on it, and then people are willing to, and then of course make it as easy as possible. That's from our side.
Yeah, on our side, if I can jump in, there were two initial hurdles, right? One was, and this also started in the Alteryx time period that I described before, which is auditors thinking like auditors in terms of, if we have these workflows, are we sharing data with NIME? Right? Is the sensitive data that we are analyzing, does this go anywhere on NIME server? And those are all the valid questions, but we certainly had to do the analysis and make some of the people comfortable that that's certainly not the case. It's all in memory. It's on all your desktop, on the desktop version that you're doing, because we don't have the NIME server yet. So that was one of the initial hurdles. And then the second one was like with any change management, to get people off Excel. It's so easy to just open Excel and start doing VLOOKUPs, right? And people are so used to it for so many years. To get them to move to an Excel reader, node or a Tika parser, or doing something which they're not used to. So helping them with some basic use cases was the way that we found was easy. And as they started using it on the audits, they became more familiar with the tool. But yeah, the change management piece is like any other change, is a hurdle, as always.
Eddy?
I think that one of the biggest hurdles is also that there are so many tools that you nowadays can or need to learn. I can spend a whole week with several communities of practices about RPA, about process mining, about Azure, Databricks, Python. At a certain moment, you have to choose what element you are going to learn. And on the business side, we have chosen for R and Python for advanced analytics, and that's a logic choice as well. But within our old department, we have chosen for NIME for advanced analytics side to replace the more complex Excel sheets. But still, we use Excel if you have a simple question about the data. Yeah, and you have to figure out where you spend your time and your and which skills you want to enhance. So time is the most difficult question often.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Michiel, do you have anything else to add, or?
No, I fully recognize what has been said, and maybe the most important comment that was being made is it is a change project, right? It's something that you need to nurture, and that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years. And are we there yet? No, probably not. There's a lot to improve, a lot to do more than we are already doing. But we see it as a change program, and it means that it's more than just, like I said before, it's more than just having a good data scientist. It's about having organizational aspects in place. It's about having technology choices in place. It's about having data available at the right time and following the right processes with the right speed. So there's a lot more to it than just having, let's say, the right data platform and a clever data analyst that could work on it. And yeah, that needs change, that needs attention, and it needs also top-down commitment.
Okay, if it's okay, I'll bring in one question, which is from the audience, but it plays into, all of you mentioned start small, getting going quickly. And all of you mentioned training, and all of you have different approaches how quickly people can get on board. But what do you think are the minimum skills you really need for an auditor to have to get started with a tool like NIME? Anybody have a view on that?
Excel.
Tjasse?
Excel.
Okay.
As long as you know Excel and can work with different sheets and do VLOOKUPs and write formulae, I mean, you have a bunch of that you can easily do in things like string manipulation node, or all the joining that options that we have, the filtering nodes. So I think as I mentioned before, the from Excel to KNIME is the ultimate source here, right? So as long as you know Excel, and it doesn't even need to be advanced Excel with macros and all that experience, just a basic Excel, you can straight away start using KNIME for those use cases.
Yeah, and at the end, I think that it is it's basically what is the minimum you need. I think curiosity. I would say that is the basic thing in there, because you start a new tool, and that is especially what you see also in our organization. Who are the ones who start with using KNIME? Those are the ones who are, let's say, always looking for new things, curiosity, and then you don't need to have all the in company kind of trainings, because there's so much out there which you can use. It's basically let's say, see the value, and that is where people start. That is really what is the most important thing to start with at KNIME. Being interested, look for new things, look for opportunities, and then try to combine, I think, in the audit team, both, let's say, the business knowledge with, okay, but what does it mean for data? What does it mean? Which data do I need? And I think that is the most important thing. And then if people are willing to look into that, they can start with KNIME. They start small, and as soon as they get stuck, they look at I always tell our new joiners is, okay, if you want to learn something about KNIME, go to YouTube, and you can, let's say, watch videos for the rest of your life. Maybe not a good life, but at least it's possible. And that is how you learn. That is just start by doing it. And if you get stuck, now we have the internal support, and we have the community that works very well.
So that pretty much plays into what, Eddy, you had as the title of your talk.
Yeah. I think that is basically start doing analytics by doing analytics. It's just where you need to start with.
Yeah, and it's about
and you need another thing you need is access to the internet, right? Because to be honest with you, whenever we got stuck at any point, KNIME Forum and KNIME Hub, I think these two sources were at our disposal, right? Because we could see some basic examples already solved by somebody, and there are some frequent people, that I can see, who are always there to answer your questions on KNIME Forum with the examples of the KNIME workflows. So as long as you have access to that, you're set, along with the curiosity, as Tjasse mentioned. So, sorry, Michiel.
No, I just said it's also you need to create some appetite for eating, right? So what we do with all the new joiners and did with all the auditors is just do a session of 3 hours and let them create their first KNIME flow themselves in an audit example, in an audit context, an actual audit context, where they created some business rules. And when they realize that they can build this themselves in only such a short amount of time, and it provides such an interesting insight on a full portfolio basis, then there comes, let's say, appetite. Even if you don't use it themselves, because what Tjasse said, I fully agree. It starts with identifying the opportunities, right, and speaking the language. And not everybody needs to be an analyst from day one, but they need to understand what to tell the analyst or what to discuss with the analyst in order to make your first case. And then, well, from one you go to the next. And I think that
and in that aspect, I think in that aspect it's also, I think what we have let's say already talked before, maybe a good idea just to start with some, let's say, because what I recognize is that it is you can go out there on the hub and on the forum, and there is so much that on one case that's fine, on the other case it's your sometimes get lost in everything what is there. So I think also an idea to start with some kind of community related to audit can really help if you're able to share the kind of work dedicated for an audit. Definitely would be something also from our side to say, okay, there's really can really help our auditors, not just to look at what we have internally, but also a look for others, what is there. So I think also that looking at examples is really something which really helps to, for your own, let's say, creativity and kind of ideas. If you know how much I have already stolen from the hub, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether you
guys,
also recognize you only need to know probably about let's say 10 9 nodes to do 80% of the interesting cases. So start with those 10, and yes, there's a whole world out there that can make it more beautiful and more impactful. But start with those 10, and I think there's some pretty nice cheat sheets by Naim that can help you with that.
Yeah.
Guys, honestly, I've got enough questions and topics that I could probably keep you here for the next hour and a half, but we've got 3 minutes to wrap up. So I want to thank you all so much, and I certainly hope we can get around. Tjasse, your question about community is really something that speaks to our heart. We'll get back to that later on. We're already trying to collect examples for various groups and verticals, so hopefully that's going to come in soon. So I want to thank you all for the great talks and for participating in the panel, and let's hope we can do this again sometime maybe in the fall. And until then, all the best, stay safe, and let me head back to Michael in Konstanz.